Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number F7000 31A-603. This is a top pivot, is what it is. This is used in the 7100 series double-acting pivot sets. And this is the top portion only of that entire set. Okay. 7112, that would mean it's a steel-based item. And the 603 tells us that it is a plated zinc finish. Zinc is a chrome-type finish. Doesn't pass as satin chrome strictly, nor polished chrome strictly, but you can see that it's both a combination of reflective but a brushed type of finish. Zinc is used when you want something silver-colored and is less expensive than a polished chrome or a satin chrome for that matter. So if you want something silvery, but I'll take the less expensive one, 603, zinc would be a great option for that. Because it's inexpensive. Top pivot only. Why would someone buy a top pivot only? Well, they probably have some sort of need to obviously center hang a door that may double act. And do so in such a way where you can remove that pin, unthread that, remove the pin, and tip your door in place, and then bring the pin back down. Okay, and that is obviously how the 7112 works. Okay, that is your top pivot. That's a 7890, or I should say that's the door portion from a Bommer 7890. Let's take some basic dimensional properties. Overall length, about 2 1/8. 7/8 diameter in all three of these areas. Okay, the 7112, the width of the jamb portion, about 1 3/16 inches. Overall height, about 2 5/16. Overall projection looks like it's about 2 9/16. Inside dimension, from the back of the bracket to the center line of the pin, looks like it's about 1 9/16. Bringing it up to about 1 5/16, I would say. Screws are going to be included. They are probably all the same screws. There's far more here than you need. That is, I don't know why that is. 2, 5. Yeah, that's probably the screw package from the entire 7112, where you would need, I think, 5 for the bottom, 3 for up here, and then 2 for the door portion, which explains why I'm seeing 10 screws inside of that package. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, that's probably why. So this client will obviously have extra screws laying around. Let's switch to the screen view where we can take a look at the supporting documentation for this item. So this is the item that we are looking at, the F7000 31A. Okay. Template, instructions, and product catalog. Let's just take a look at these in order. Now, the template is going to refer to the entire device, is what it's going to refer to, the entire 7112 and a 7312. We'll take a look at what the difference is there. But here's what your installation is going to look like, right in this area. So, you know, does the client need a top pivot only and they have an existing 7112? Yeah, certainly. We do sell the top pivots by themselves. There's no doubt, and there's a reason people are purchasing them, obviously. But this will show what that installation needs to look like. Okay, let's switch over to the instructions. And again, this will be instructions for the entire unit. If you are using this in some way outside of what it was designed for, meaning the 7000 series double-acting pivot, I guess what I would be most aware of is the jamb to the vertical axis of pivoting, that 1 5/8. Okay, so that dimension is fixed. What your jamb to the vertical axis of pivoting would be. So I would be aware of that. You know, and make sure, whatever, if you're using this with something else, make sure that you'll be able to accomplish that plumb vertical axis of pivoting. These installation instructions apply to the entire unit. I won't go through them in this video. Then let's switch over to the product catalog, and that's going to show you the 7000 series spring pivots. And we go right to the 7112 because that's what this has come out of. So what we have is a 7112 and a 7122. They all meet these this description. Okay, steel-based material, double acting, adjustable spring tension, etc., etc., etc. The top pivot is the same, but the way you go about installing them will be different based on the unit being surface mounted or mortised. And they don't mean anything about the top pivot. All they're saying is, on the bottom portion here, do you literally take your door and cut all of this out and mortise it? Or do you literally run your door to well, what they would do is this mounting leg would be up here. Then your door would sit in this area, and you would only drill for this projecting item, which is called the boss. That's the only difference between those two. And as you scroll through the rest of this 5-page product catalog, you'll see how the part number changes as certain things change. For instance, your 7112, if you wanted that as a brass-based material, you would order a 7312. Everything else is the same. Okay? Why would you want brass? Well, because you're trying to match a finish. You know, there's nothing like polished brass on solid brass. You know, plated brass over steel is not the same. It does not look the same as solid brass with a polished finish on it. To some, it will look the same, and to some, it just, you know, that the difference in cost won't really matter because obviously steel will be less expensive, but that would be the difference there. I've had a client who has ordered. We've been able to use this top pivot to salvage a particular situation. I had a client with a Dutch door, a lower leaf of a Dutch door only. Okay, and this is an established client. Called up and said, I have a problem. Okay, I've got a Dutch door, and I installed 3 Bommer double-acting spring hinges on it. Okay, and Bommer makes, you know, if you know their name for anything, you will for double-acting spring pivots. But what the customer installed was the 3029 8-inch size double-acting spring pivot. That is a huge, huge, huge hinge. That is a very large hinge. And, you know, a Dutch door, I'm thinking, well, the leaf is about, you can see how large that hinge is. The leaf is, the height of the bottom panel can only be about 40 inch. It's going to be something in that range, maybe 42. And he says the door won't swing correctly. The hinges are literally separating. This double-acting spring hinge, he says, is literally separating. And the only thing that would cause that when it was operated is because the door was too heavy. And I says, well, it's, you know, what's that lower leaf made out of? You know, how heavy can it be? Well, it's about 150 pounds. And I said, well, the hinge will handle that. You know, the hinge will, you know, you've got 3 hinges on there. Yeah, you should be okay. Well, it turns out that it was a Dutch door, but they had a granite shelf on top. So all of that 150 pounds, you know, 2/3 of it for sure was at the top of that door. So what we did was I took my suggestion, and it worked out flawlessly, was that the client take a Bommer 7813, a heavy-duty, rated for 150 pounds, double-acting pivot, non-hold open, adjustable spring tension, okay, at the bottom. Now, this unit will come with the 7890 at the top. This portion here is what comes with our F7000. So the only thing that the client had to do was to observe and get his top portion installed so that it was plumb. The template for the 7813 HD calls out 1 3/4 from the jamb to the vertical axis of pivoting, whereas our F7000 needed 1 5/8. So the client needed, I don't know what they cheated in order to accomplish that. I imagine what they did, and it was my suggestion that they literally just pad this out from the jamb, with something 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, I imagine that's what they did. They had to, of course, treat the door on the edge to make it double acting, but that solved the problem. Why did it solve the problem? Well, because of the top pivot itself, there's no opportunity for the door to come out of the opening. Long term with the 7890 door portion, that bushing may fatigue with time. Well, we can replace those bushings, and that swapping that out would be a relatively quick task. You'd have to loosen the screw and remove the screw and the washer down here, drive the door out after removing the top pin, tipping the door out, replacing that bushing, removing the item from the door. Maybe not even. You probably can just remove the bushing, and there you go. And that's one way that we used the top pivot only, and did so in a fashion that allowed the client to solve his problem. And we did it in a sense of, if you're familiar with model train hobbies, the term kit bashing comes into play, where you're going to build a new item using parts from kits from other kits, so that you strip those parts out. And that's kind of what we did here. Okay, let's finish up this video on camera, but before we do so, that link to the manufacturer's page will allow you to review not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Okay, and maybe some prior catalogs. Obviously, their discontinued postal specialties catalog is here. If you needed to do some research to find out what Bomber made once upon a time, they discontinued that entire line in about 2018, maybe 2019. And I had visited the factory about a year after that, and they got out of the mailbox business, that's for sure. Which is unfortunate, because they made an exceptional mailbox that a lot of people liked. I now am forgetting the part number. Yeah, it was a 9000 series part number. Anyway, it would be obviously in the link to the manufacturer's page here if you wanted to look that up. Let's finish up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, the F7000 31A, that can be done in lots of different finishes. I have visited the Bommer plating factory, and they are very proud of their ability to produce about 33 or 34 different finishes out of their plating factory. Zinc, of course. 603 is the BHMA number for zinc, and that tells us that it is a zinc coated over a steel base material. The BHMA, if you were to look up BHMA, Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association finish chart, you'll find all of those codes, those 3-digit codes, and a conversion, when possible, from the US number. And that US code came out, US2G, this might be called. Don't quote me, I think it's US2G, zinc. The very late 1920s is when that was put into effect. And the U.S. code allowed, not to divert too far off, but you could buy a lock from Corbin, you could buy hinges from Yale, and you can buy something else from Sargent, let's say window hardware. And prior to a unified finish code standard, you could buy Colombian bronze from this person, and you could buy, Costa Rican bronze, and you could buy... The point of the matter is, you couldn't mix and match manufacturers because the finish would never be identical. And if you're building a house, or if you're building a home, or if you're building the Empire State Building, which is about that time frame as well, by the way, you need the finishes to match. So the U.S. code structure was put into place to serve that purpose. The BHMA finish chart is simply a more defined system by which to agree upon what to call items, because you can do zinc plating on different items. You can zinc plate. I don't know much about plating, but let's just assume you can plate zinc onto different base materials. Well, if you're calling it zinc plated, I would like to know the base material, because the base material will affect the final look. The BHMA code tells us the base material, whether it's steel or it's aluminum or it's brass or it's bronze. The US code does not. So it was a great attempt to get a unified standard by which we can all understand what finishes are. But US 3, which is polished brass, okay, it's US 3. Back to the example of polished brass. Is it on brass-based material or steel-based material? Brass-based material, US 3 is 605. Steel-based material, US 3 is 632. They're both US 3, but now when I use the BHMA code, I understand better completely what the base material is, because the finish is not the same. You may not want to be doing 605 knobs for your client and then 632 hinges. They're going to look different. Anyway, if you have any questions on the F7000, 31A and a 603 finish, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.